So a lot of students are having trouble with covalent bond. So if you don't know what ionic bond is, go check out the other video I did on ionic. I did a complete video, so go check that out. I even did a video on naming, so go check that out. Now, for covalent, I'm going to merge the two. So I'm going to tell you what covalent is, and I'm also going to go over how you do the naming. Okay, it's really simple. So for covalent, what is covalent to begin with? So when you have a covalent bond, it's sharing like a pair of electrons, two atoms sharing a pair of electrons. Now, again, usually that's going to be two nonmetals, but again, you can have more. So you can have diatomic molecules or you can have polyatomic molecules. So diatomic molecules, again, is just two atoms, so it's going to be Cl2, H2, HCl, and there's more. And then if you have polyatomic, it's going to be more than two atoms. And usually chemists have a list that they'll give you in your chemistry class or whatever, your professor or your teacher, they'll give you a list and they'll say memorize this whole list. Okay, one of them, for example, is going to be ammonium, which is NH4+. Now, let's go over that again. So covalent is that you're sharing a pair of electrons, two atoms sharing a pair of electrons. Again, it can be more atoms. Again, that would be polyatomic. Now, what is something that you really need to know? Something that you need to know is that usually, I don't have it in this video, but they'll ask you to differentiate between what is a polar covalent and what is a non-polar covalent. Just for sake of time purposes, just know that usually there is a value that you calculate, and if it's less than, I believe, 0.5, so 0.4 or lower, usually it's going to be non-polar covalent, and if it's between 0.5 and 1.5, 1.4-ish, then that's going to be polar covalent, and if it's more than 1.5, then that's when it's considered ionic, just for your information of knowing. Now, I have a separate way of kind of figuring out if it's non-polar covalent versus polar covalent. If you want me to do a video on that, please let me know in the comments. But in general, again, what I want you to know for covalent is that it's two atoms sharing a pair of electrons, okay? Now, let's go over the naming portion. So for naming, what you really need to know is this list, okay? You have to memorize it by yourself. There's just no way that I can memorize it for you, but it's really simple. So mono is 1, di is 2, tri is 3, tetra is 4, penta is 5, hexa is 6, hepta is 7, octa is 8, nona is 9, and deca is 10. Again, mono is 1, di is 2, tri is 3, tetra 4, penta 5, hexa 6, hepta 7, octa 8, nona 9, deca 10. So let's go over some examples. So HCl. So you're going to put hydrogen and then chloride. Again, you're not going to say chlorinide. That's going to sound super weird. So you chop off a little bit at the end and then you put IDE. Okay. Now, carbon and oxygen. So that's where you learn carbon monoxide, okay? Now, you're not going to put monooxide. That sounds super weird. Again, so it's going to be monoxide. That's why you kind of chop off that, oh, you're not putting monooxide, you're putting monoxide. Again, you only have one carbon and one oxygen. So I know some students are tempted to put monocarbon monoxide, but that just sounds weird. So usually they just write carbon monoxide if it's just one. Okay, now let's say you have carbon and then oxygen, you have two. So again, you're not going to put monocarbon. Again, if it's one, usually you leave it alone and don't write it when it's the first element. But when it's the second element, usually you will write that mono. So in this case, you're going to write carbon dioxide. Okay, so again, di would be 2, and then you're going to have oxygen. You're not going to put dioxygenide, you're going to put dioxide, okay? You slice off a little bit of oxygen, you just put IDE, okay? Again, when you're talking about the first one, you're not going to put monohydrogen or monocarbon. No, for the first one, you just write what it is. So the first one, you had hydrogen, the second one, you have carbon, the third one, you have carbon. Again, what you're really focusing on is that second element when you're kind of writing those prefixes. Now, here's an example. So now I have 2 for my nitrogen. So it's going to be dinitrogen and then pentoxide. I know some students are going to write pentoxide, but again, for sound purposes, you're going to put pentoxide because you have that vowel, okay? Now, let's try NF3. Again, you're not going to put mononitrogen. No, you leave it alone, just put nitrogen, and then you have 3, and then you have 3 what? You have 3 fluorines, right? So you're going to put nitrogen trifluoride. You're not going to put trifluorinide or something weird. It's going to be trifluoride, okay? So, I know some students are going to be like, wait, but you haven't gone over polyatomic. So if you want me to, write it in the comments. I'll do a separate video on how to do polyatomics, what they are, and how to name them, because the naming is different. But if you enjoyed this video, again, it takes time to create this content, so please follow, like, share, and thanks again for watching.